All right, trimming 101. Let's go. Let's get started. When you come to Norris Arts and you get your pots back, they are going to be double bagged. The reason for the double bag is it kind of keeps that moisture level of the clay stable for a period, because you don't want it drying out too fast or drying out too much from where it is. And I'll show you what we're looking for here. After you throw, it's wet. And right now we're kind of at a leather hard stage where I can hold it, it can retain its shape, I can feel it, it's actually carvable. There's also leather soft, in which it would be a little softer and you could like add water and throw to it. And then there's leather stiff, which is like really hard, and then there's bone dry, which is white and chalky. This is perfect because it's carvable and we can trim it. So the first thing I do is I kind of feel the area that I would like to trim. And I think the wall here is relatively even, but the area that I'm going to be trimming is right here on the bottom edge. And this area is I'm going to be carving away and just kind of finishing off the rest of this piece. So the couple things that you do before you get trimming is you kind of need some tools, right? So we're going to start with the tools. This is considered a pear tool. A pear tool is because it's kind of shaped like a pear, and it's got a little sharp pointed end, a nice big rounded end, and a big flat end, which I like a lot. And then you also have got a nice sharp 90 degree here and a nice rounded. And the loop tool is generally held like a knife to where you would hold it and you would trim acrossways. Whereas the ribbon tool is held like a pencil, and you can use that much more fine detail work. So depending on which tool you're using, you use them a little differently. Another tool you're going to use is a needle tool, and I'll show you why we use this. And then of course you always have a handy sponge, because those come in really good. The last piece of equipment or stuff that you would need is some clay. So in order to make sure that we have this pot perfectly in the middle, I use the rings of the wheel to allow me to put the rings of the pot right smack dab as close as I can to the middle of the wheel. And that way when I turn the wheel on, it's pretty close to the middle. Now the needle tool I'm going to use to give myself a mark. I'm just going to mark right here on top of the pot. And what that mark tells me is where the center of the wheel head is. It doesn't tell me where the center of the pot is. That's really important to understand. So I need to move this pot to the center of the wheel head. So where do I look? Maybe I'm going to do another line right out here towards the edge just to get a better idea. And so this is a little thinner on this side than that side, so I'm just going to move it a hair this way, wipe the line away, and let's come back and let's do another line and see where we're at. And so that line is more equidistant all the way around, so it's as perfectly centered as we can get it, and that's key. And what you're going to do here is you're going to create these little logs. I call them little sausages, right, because they look a little bit like link sausages. And I kind of do 3 of them because 3 kind of holds in a pretty nice pattern. And the very first thing you do is you hold the pot down, because you don't want the pot to move. You lay the log right up against the edge and you push the clay straight down. Now the reason you do that is you want to make sure that as you push the clay down, it scoots up against the pot versus pushing the clay into the pot. So I always make sure I push the clay straight down and it just scooches up nice and tight against the pot. And then the 3rd log goes in, and the tripod of the 3 logs should hold the pot together. Now you can always come back in afterwards and just do a little bit more of a secure job of making sure this is all there, and then you can also move it to see if it's going to move. And if it's not moving, you're good to go. So then you take your very first tool. This gives me a nice straight flat edge, and so I'm going to come across here and I'm just going to start right at the middle and move my way right to the outside. So you can see fine shavings are coming off, and that's due to my little bit of pressure. If I just put the tool on top, nothing happens. But if I put a little bit of pressure, all of a sudden, clay's starting to come off. And if you got a nice sharp blade, that always works really well. If for whatever reason the clay's not coming off cleanly, then you can always get a little bit of a sharpener and you can sharpen up your tip if you need to. But you always want a nice clean cut. So I come across the edge, and then I'll come around the side, and that just kind of evens out all the rough edges and kind of take off everywhere you put the blade. You're going to carve away a little bit of clay. So now I've got the major cuts all taken care of. I got the side cleaned up. I've got the bottom nice and flat. So then I think I'm done with the large tool. I'm going to come back in with a smaller tool. And this is gonna give me a much finer detail edge here because I like that nice right 90-degree edge. And then that creates the outside of the foot ring. I'm gonna create the inside of the foot ring right there. And that means that's the where I'm gonna start and finish. And yes, I've got a little bit of a divot right there, and I'm not gonna worry about that because that's just there. I'm gonna start here in the middle, take the corner, and then just work my way right to the outside. Nice, slow, steady, and come off. And all you're doing is a little bit of pressure and a nice straight cut from one side to the other. And when you hit that, you stop, clean off the mess. And wherever you lay the tool, the clay is going to come off. I'm also checking the depth just to make sure I don't carve a hole straight through the bottom of my pot. And we're going to take that across. So you can leave the spirals in there, or you can come back in with the tool and carve them all away. Or maybe you just want a little bit of a spiral, and that's okay too. Clean up whatever's looking ragged. There's lots of blowing involved with trimming. And clean up this edge right here. And one thing you try to do is you try to get the width of your foot ring to be about the width of the pot. So I think I'm actually going to narrow this down a little bit, which is going to cut right into that hole, which is a little crazy, but we're going to see what that does. And I think that actually took care of that little bit of stuff there on the edge. And just a little bit of flatness all the way across. Clean off the rest. Tidy up that corner. Again, you can use a variety of different tools. There's different shapes that you can use, like this is a little curved edge. I'm going to use that curved edge just to kind of take that edge down. And that you can kind of use that whole thing just to kind of come right up the side and get that whole side nice and round. And wherever you carve the clay, that's where it comes off. And that's why this is called a ribbon tool, because it just carves the clay in the form of a ribbon, and it's super fine. So what you're trying to do is create a nice soft edge here, and a little bit of a foot ring here, and a nice edge here. So the most important thing about finishing is that you wrap this pot up with a name on the bottom, because every pot has to have a name. And I would strongly recommend using a pencil versus a needle tool, which leaves fine shavings. So either use a pencil, or in my case, I just like using the back end of a broken pin tool and do my name right on the bottom. This also gives you a chance to do, if you've got like a family logo or something you want to do, or some kind of an imprint. You can, it doesn't stick in there very well, does it? There you go, that works. And then this is a pot that's trimmed with a nice foot ring, and you are ready to put this up on the greenware shelf. And that way this has completed this second phase of the process. Trimming 101, and then that pot goes over there for drying for about a week and a half for the final firing.